How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. Thanks for giving me some time off. It was not what I wanted. I tried really hard because I was going to be out of town for training for work. So I tried to I pre-recorded stuff and it was supposed to be this uninterrupted chain of content. And then you travel and sometimes you get sick, and I caught a real nasty bug and I was out for days, and I was just like, screw it. I'm going to just take a break anyway. And the whole time I was still having to prep myself for this job and everything. It's going pretty well. I'd say it's a little stressful just because it's all new, but more it's such an upgrade from what I had. So I'm very happy with things in general. So it's all good news in that regard. It's going to be interesting. I think I've got a good system in mind for how I'm going to record videos, and this weekend's going to be a good trial run of it. So I'm going to record Higurashi right now. Tomorrow I should be able to record trails, or whatever my long videos are. I'll probably try and record them on Friday nights or Saturday nights, basically. And then for everything else, I should be able to squeeze them into the days of the week, assuming I'm not feeling too exhausted. Which I don't think it'll be a problem. I think lately it's been tiring just because it's been emotionally exhausting because it's just been so different. But as I get more settled into things, I think it'll be a lot easier to balance. But yeah, for tonight, we're going to be doing some Higurashi. I'm very excited about that. So last time, we had Shion basically reveal the fact that she is Shion and not Mion, but in a desire to save Satoshi, because he basically is getting cornered by the cops. And there was well, this is a Hail Mary, try and help him out, give him advice on what we can do, and hopefully see what the fallout is. But that's kind of what this episode's going to be, because we also know Satoshi vanishes. He vanishes quickly. I'm kind of surprised because I thought the vanishing was going to be towards the end, but I don't know. Some people are implying that this is a midway point or something, which I was very surprised by. I thought we were getting close to the end, so I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. Again, and I'm hoping that's not ending up being a spoiler. I don't think it's meant to be. I think it's just meant to be hey, here we go. Or things are about to get really interesting. Kind of brace yourself. And I'm oh, okay. But it's all right. Anyway, I think we're going to jump right into things because it should get fascinating. So I'm guessing we're going to be starting either in the prison, in the jail for questioning, and go through that sequence, or it'll just inexplicably jump ahead and then we'll see where we land. But either way, I'm excited. Let's see how Satoshi's fate shook out from the perspective of Shion and his other friends. The cops are smart enough to separate us during questioning. Yeah, they would be. Oishi didn't come talk to me. His aim was Satoshi-kun and nobody else. I got a young cop who just talked about ordinary things. He must have been trying to ease me into the interrogation. When I realized that, the clumsy way he spoke began to frustrate me. It's Satoshi-kun all right? I didn't think Oishi really bought my testimony. He must have been trying to get Satoshi-kun to confess in spite of that. All I could do was pray he'd keep quiet. And I mean, it's not it's that complicated to see, but ironically, the cops are also probably playing on the frustration. A lot of people feel that they can outsmart the cops, that they watch some, cop drama or real TV, real crime TV or something like that, think that they got the cops figured out. The cops can still play you pretty well. Literally the only real defense you have, because you're not going to be in a good state of mind if you're being brought in by the cops. Even if you're 100% innocent, if you're brought in for questioning, you're not going to be feeling okay. You're liable to make mistakes. You might even fall into pitfalls that they try to get you to say something that to your ears might not seem all that big of a deal, especially if you don't really know what's going on, but could be this arbitrary bit of information that gives them the right to search you, to seize you, search you, maybe go get a warrant for your home or whatever. The best thing you can do, regardless of how guilty or innocent you are, it's the same advice, is you shut up, you cooperate, but you don't answer any questions until you have a lawyer present. Again, I'm not sure how that translates to Japan, but since Japan's legal system post-World War II was relatively based on, inspired by, and probably ham-fisted into being like America's, I imagine their legal system is also fairly similar, and I imagine that they have some very similar statutes. So the idea being, maybe, I'm not entirely sure if they guarantee that you'll have a lawyer given to you by the state if you can't afford one, but I do believe that, like, it's within your best interest to just literally refuse to answer any questions unless you have a lawyer physically present who is there to represent you. One of the things I've always wondered is, like, could they convince somebody to dress up like a lawyer and pretend to be your legal counsel? I know that'd be horrifically illegal, but I wonder if that ever has been used as a tactic to try and trick you into a false sense of security. Because that's horrifying if that could ever happen. Anyway, let's go. All I could do was pray that he'd keep quiet. The phone on the desk rang, and the cop picked it up.
はい、熊谷です。はい？ああ、そうですか。わかりました。
Is that going to be her family coming in, or like basically like, hey, let her go. She's been, strings have been pulled.
すぐに。
He hung up and told me somebody had come to retrieve me. It looked like Satoshi-kun had to stay. Were they going to continue to interrogate in the interrogation just because he had nobody to pick him up? Although, maybe I should have been worrying more about myself. The hag had probably heard about me by now, since I revealed my real identity to the police. I couldn't hide any longer. I was going to receive some sort of punishment. I had no idea what she'd end up doing to me. The degree of punishment for a traitor is always severe in the world of the Sonosakis. The punishment must be carried out. If it's to protect the family's reputation, it's carried out no matter what. Or in other words, no matter who. Maybe I should kiss my pinky finger while I still can. I asked the young cop just in case.
ねえねえ、アメリカなんかでよく死刑囚が死刑廃止の州で捕まると引き渡さないでくれるっていう話あるじゃないですか。
Huh. Interesting. If a condemned criminal gets arrested in a state which has banned capital punishment, they'll refuse to surrender into a state prosecuting him if the state hasn't banned it. Yes, but no. They can initially reject until there's a proper, like, oh shoot, I just had the word in my head and it's gone now. But there's extradite. You can get an extradition order. So the state that wants him, that might potentially execute him for capital punishment, they can put an extradition order into place where they basically say, hey, we have a right to charge him under our criminal law. The state that currently houses them, if they committed a crime in that state, can have legal precedents where they can prosecute him or her initially, and after they service their term for their crime, as long as it's within custody, once they are out of custody, for normal people that might be when they're on probation. So like, they get out of jail early on conditions. If they violate their probation, they go right back into jail to finish their sentence. But instead of being let out on probation or even being released at the end of their stay, they would then immediately be sent to the next state that has put out an extradition order to service out their crime at that time. They might initially try to prevent a transfer on the grounds that that they're trying to protect his right to life and liberty, which is kind of the clause in the Constitution that they utilize to try and justify this. But ultimately, all that would do is just kick it up to the high courts and the not quite it could go all the way to the Supreme Court, but it probably just goes to a federal court. And the federal court will basically judge, look at the circumstances, and as long as there aren't any truly extenuating circumstances, they're likely to uphold an extradition order. So it would only be temporary at best for any crime that has been well reviewed. Now, if there's a lot of dispute on the validity of the crime, if the federal judge is reviewing the case and they look at the evidence that was presented that was setting them up for capital punishment and it seems shaky or unreliable, they might kick it up to the Supreme Court to say that the extradition is a legal action that is justified via an illegal judgment, and then ask for the Supreme Court to take a look at it. But such cases likely wouldn't even be seen. Maybe it was too difficult for him. He just looked puzzled. A glossy black car was waiting for me in front of the police station. A few men from my dad's office bowed to me.
Shion-san, ご無沙汰しております。
葛西は?
Kasai had been helping me ever since I escaped from the school. They wouldn't allow him to walk free.
お姉はどうしてるの? 何か言ってる?
私たちはシオンさんを本家へお連れしろとしか言われていませんので、詳しくは本家でお尋ねになってください。
Right. After saying that, he escorted me into the car. The man on either side of me. Obviously, they didn't want me to escape. Thinking of Satoshi-kun, I looked back at the police station. Hold on tight, Satoshi-kun. I'll grin and bear it too. The car started off roughly. It was never a good occasion when I went to this house, except when Mion and I were really small, oblivious to what the Sonozaki name meant for us. I had been here only when I had to attend boring family councils. The car parked behind the house. Traders aren't allowed in through the main gate. I got out of the car and it looked like Sis would be the only person to receive me. I almost spoke to her casually, but her cold gaze froze me before I could.
お久しぶりですね、シオン。
Yeah, it's not looking great. I think it's partly because her reintroduction to herself into the area after breaking out of the school is to get arrested. Looks real bad. She revealed her existence when they probably were trying to keep that under wraps as a family. But most importantly, she doesn't realize that she's interfering with direct, curse-related family business. It's not going to go over well. And hence the chimes.
新年以外に会えるとは思いませんでした。
It gave me the chills to hear her greet me in that cold manner.
ミオン姉様こそ、ご機嫌麗しゅうございます。新年以外にお顔が見れて、3問くらいの得を感じます。
I responded, trying to sound likewise.
当主は大変ご立腹ですよ。どう釈明されるか見ものです。
Honestly, so do I.
私がするような釈明なんて、別にないですし。
I had no excuse. I had escaped from the school solely because I couldn't stand it there. That was all.
シオン、来なさい。皆待っています。
Oh boy. Mion escorted me and the others followed. We went to the garden, not into the house. As we passed through the huge yard and the woods, I realized where she was taking me. When we were little, we were told never to go near these woods. I had a vague idea of what was in the back of them. I'd heard there was a hidden entrance to the underground torture room, where they used to punish the enemies of the family. The more hideous rumors I heard about the family, the more credible those rumors seemed. Well, I wasn't completely certain about any of that. I'd never expected to see the torture room for myself. Yeah. We came to a conclave clearing in the middle of the woods. I saw the metal door at the bottom of it. The door reminded me of a bomb shelter.
これが噂の地下拷問室ってやつですね。
I was surprised to hear my own voice. My voice was trembling. It made me realize I was more scared than I thought. Nobody answered my question. The very air felt tense. According to the family rules, one of the twins must be eliminated. Was I finally going to be eliminated? I realized I had been underestimating my punishment. I hadn't been aware of the real terror until now. I just thought I was. Beyond the steel door, the air was an intimidating smell. It really was happening to me. I shouldn't allow myself to give into fear. I felt like saying something rude, but my lips were dry, and my fingers were fidgeting. It was escorted through the narrow hallway and down a few sets of stairs. There I saw another huge steel door. So this was the place. It was a spacious and utterly odd-looking room. The room had two sections that looked completely different. One side looked like a lounge. I saw several high-ranking members of the family council sitting on cushions there, looking expressionless. The other half was tiled, as if at a large public bath. That was already puzzling enough. And there were those things. To be honest, they had captured my attention from the moment I arrived. It's the buzzing, right? Like what are they, flies? I noticed them even before I saw the lounge and tilted space. I just didn't want to accept that they existed. I couldn't stand straight. I almost dropped to my knees, but I couldn't. The two young men had been holding me by the arm since I got here. There were oddly shaped things hanging from the wall. I was just refusing to recognize what they were. I knew exactly what they were called. Oh, I see. I understood that those eerie shaped objects were torture devices from hell. So it is the same room.
だほがどの面下げて戻ってきた思うとっとと
Well, I mean, she doesn't actually die here, right? Unless we're having the whole weird body snatching thing happening. The hag, sitting in front of the lounge, immediately intimidated me in a horrid voice. She kept cursing me for a little while, but she was so incessant that I could barely tell what she was saying. I knew what she was trying to say, though. The hag was willing to forgive my escape from the school. But once I revealed my identity to police, she had to step in. Since I had disobeyed the family rule, she as the leader was forced to punish me. Moreover, there's one thing that bothered her more than anything else. The fact that I covered for Satoshi-kun. The Hojo family had been seen as traitors in the village ever since the dam conflict. Satoshi-kun still considered one of them. She couldn't accept that I was connected to him. To me, this was a bit unexpected. I'd escaped from the school the hag had put me in. All the while, I'd believed that was what she was upset about. But in fact, she said that she was most uncomfortable with my connection with Satoshi-kun. I couldn't believe this. Of course, I knew the Satoshi-kun family was persecuted for their betrayal. All right, real quick, again, I'm running my theory that the murders are a mundane thing that was planned from the beginning. That it was something that like a well-trained and hyper clever Rika heard and was able to piece together through like the way that they make requests with subtle like phrases, right? For whatever reason, Satoshi was selected as like the target, or at least Satoshi / Satoko. By the way, this music's horrifying. That sounded like broken, like garbled, but I think it's intentional, which is crazy. But this music is like, whew. Anyway, so if that's the case, right, and Satoshi's basically been selected to be vanished, Shion's association with him is the bigger problem, because now it ties her too close to what's going to be happening, and the whole idea is there's not supposed to be any direct connection because it's supposed to be just a curse that's just randomly happening. But I didn't think that Satoshi-kun was also burdened with that responsibility.
そんなのサトシ君関係ないじゃないですか。サトシ君の親はわかるとしても、サトシ君個人には何の責任もな。
しゃあなしよ。
Well, we get Grandma's crazy eyes here. The hag interrupted me with a shout that made me cower in fear. She continued slandering the Hyojos and said that Satoshi-kun was a cursed child. I started feeling pissed off. What did he do to deserve this? What was he being blamed for? I was too late when I realized I'd said that out loud. The hag looked furious. I'd obviously upset her. I decided to repeat myself to make it very clear how I felt.
鬼ババ、あんた何言ってんの？黙って聞いてれば言いたい放題。
Oh, jeez.
なんばねすったら口の利き。
やかましい！しまいまで聞きなよ、鬼ババ！
I shouted loudly to silence the hag.
だいたい、あんたはサトシ君の何を知ってるの？
So I'm guessing that she's supposed to just be speaking very strongly and kind of disrespectfully, which is why they're throwing the F-bombs in here. But it does feel weird.
サトシ君のことをよく知りもしないくせに、まるで彼を害虫みたいに言い捨てて、サトシ君がどんなにいい人か、私はよく知っている。彼が北条だからいけないの？バッカみたい！時代錯誤も甚だしい。園崎の私が北条のサトシ君と一緒にいたのがそんなにも不愉快なの？
Shion, you probably should slow down a bit. I understand that you're trying to make a point here, but holy crap, you're good. I'm starting to freak out.
くったらない、くったらない、バッカみたい！こんな安っぽいロミジュリを自分で体験できるなんて思わなかったな。
Like Romeo Juliet? Oh wow, that laugh. It's like just like Mion's laugh. My voice became hoarse from shouting. My face was messy with tears. Even so, I didn't feel like putting a stop to my emotional explosion. I was all too aware that I was just doing this just to overwhelm my fear. So the hag was glaring at me while breathing heavily. I glared back at her as fiercely as I could. Eventually, I realized that her sticking point was my relationship with Satoshi-kun. She wasn't only upset that I had a mere connection with him.
そっか。ミオンがそういう告げ口をしたわけか。
Well, Did you really expect that when push came to shove and when her back was against the wall that she was just going to take a fall for you? She's already done so much for you, like with her friends. But you know the family means to her, like, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm surprised you're surprised, Shion. It was as though Mion was wearing a mask. She didn't budge under my penetrating glare. That was what the hag was really unhappy about. The fact that I was in love with Satoshi-kun. Oh boy.
確かに私、自分が園崎家だとか、サトシ君が北条家だとか、認めますよ、認めます。
Oh gosh.
私は北条サトシ君が好きです。彼のことが大好きです。
Oh my gosh. Shion, please don't do this.
それっていけないこと？
Yes, unfortunately.
人が人を好きになるのに何か理由が必要？
I could see the relatives shaking their heads in turmoil. Among them, I saw my mom. She must have been trying to protect me. But even she wouldn't look at me. Instead, she looked silently at the floor.
後ろのあんたたちも聞こえてるでしょ？私おかしいこと言ってる？あんたたちだってサトシ君をよく知れば、彼がどんなに素敵な男の子で、私が好きになるのがおかしくないことがすぐにわかる。
You know, if these people aren't involved in the actual like culty, you know, plan, and they understand enough of it to know like how this is all playing out, I wonder how they feel. Cause I don't know. I'd like to hope that somewhere in their hearts, regardless of how crazy some of them seem, that deep down there's still something human that might recognize, like, you know, Shion's not wrong to have normal feelings, right?
なのに、なんで相手の人格も知ろうとしないで一方的に。
Mion held out a hand to silence me. Then she slowly walked in my direction.
もう結構です、シオン。
Oh boy.
あなたの言い分と覚悟はよくわかりました。
Mion put her hand close to mine and whispered.
シオンの覚悟はよくわかったよ。でもここまで言い切っちゃったら、誰にももうかばえない。シオンがけじめをつけてみせるしかない。
けじめ？なんで私がなんでそんなバカな。
シオン。
Mion's face turned cold again and she calmly told me.
あなたの言う個人の理屈は多分正しい。でもね、あなたも理解していると思うけど、ここはひなみ沢で、私たちは園崎家なの。御三家の末席で、今や事実上のひなみ沢の筆頭家。
And the family has to come first and our reputation has to matter and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da mother.
そしてあなたは仮にも、園崎家次期当主である園崎美音の双子の妹。それが。
I interrupted her.
あんたとは、こっちに帰ってから、どうもそのあたりの話が食い合わないですね。大人の事情みたいなことばっか。ひなみ沢？園崎家？だから何？私はそんなの全然興味な。
聞きなさい！
Mion interrupted me just like I did her.
シオンは今日まで沖宮で生活するにあたって、どれだけの人の世話になってる？
Oh, shoot. I clicked early. Chill shot through my spine.
葛西さん、奥の牢屋にいる。
なんで葛西が？
I knew why, of course. The moment I got caught, those who helped me were just destined to meet the same fate. We were all subject to the punishment of betrayal. Maybe my punishment would be lighter than what they would be going through. Kasai and Uncle Yoshiro must have been treated much worse than this. Everybody who helped me was falling victim.
シオンがどういう目にあっても、シオン本人は覚悟があるからいいだろうけど。
Are they gonna do the whole, like, your punishment is having to, like, witness what your choices have led? Like, make her watch people suffer for her?
お世話になった葛西さんや吉郎おじさんがどうなるかまでは、考えが及ばない？
I mean, you also kind of were helping me on. But I suppose as the head of the family, you can kind of obscure that fact. My head rapidly cooled down. My aggression was all used up. I should be able to bear whatever punishment they'd bring on me. But I resented the fact that I'd be putting the people who supported me at risk.
シオン、 ばっちゃんに謝って、けじめをつけてみせれば、シオン一人だけの話で全部済む。誰にも迷惑をかけない。
でも、ミオン、私、間違ったこと言った？そんなにも悪いことした？
In these situations, and from Mion and Granny's perspective, yeah. Because family ties, names, reputation, especially reputation, unfortunately, in an organization like this, in a cult / a yakuza, and that's barring any of the mystical, metaphysical crap that could be happening. Reputation is worth more than all the money that an organization can have. Because an organization that has its name, where its name means meaning and power and strikes fear, could lose every cent, and they could build it back up again. But a family could have all the riches in Tokyo, all to themselves, but if their name means nothing, and their influence has no sway, then that might as well not even be their money. So in a way, if you really break it down to what matters, especially in a culture like Japan's where, you know, collectiveness, that attitude, reputation is so important. Yeah. Unfortunately, you kind of did. Is it right? No, absolutely not. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's part of why criminal families are so scary and so sad. Because despite some of the cool things they can do, and I'm talking about like the organization of like helping support communities, often giving voices and power to people who would be normally kind of ostracized or left to fend for themselves. They do far more damage, far more harm than they bring about good. And in this family, it's just a whole other level. The moment Mion learned that I wasn't willing to apologize, her expression turned cold again. She turned her back to me and returned to the lounge. I talked back to the hag in a really harsh manner. I told her I didn't do anything wrong, yet I had involved many people who I owed so much. It was without saying this was my responsibility. I was the sole person to blame, and no fault lay with them. Yes, Kasai and Yoshiro-san were blameless, just like Satoshi-kun was. But then, as if she read my mind, Mion turned around and gave a slight nod. It was possible that something was going to happen to Satoshi-kun, on top of Kasai and Uncle Yoshiro.
待って、お姉！
That can't happen. Satoshi-kun, I mean, nobody else should have to be punished. Please forgive them. Man, I know she's in love with him, but again, like, this uncle and this, like friend who basically put their lives on the line, they knew the risk going in. And yet, her first thought and primary thought is still Satoshi. I've said before that she's down bad, but she's down super bad.
何ですか、シオン。
Tears rolled down my cheeks. I no longer cared about my pride.
ごめんなさい。私が間違っていました。許してください、当主様。
Again, I can't help but remember Shion's pleading in chapter 2 when she was in this chamber locked up and watching Keiichi about to be taken out. It's very similar. I should have said what the hag wanted to hear, yet she still looked unsatisfied. Maybe that wasn't too surprising. I had just denounced her so badly in front of the relatives. She wouldn't forgive me so easily. Just then, Mion spoke as the successor.
ではシオン、どうやってけじめをつけるつもりです？
けじめって、どうすれば？
Nothing could be scarier than being told to pay pay up while standing next to the horrid-looking torture devices. Well, that's kind of the point. I was completely terrified. I couldn't move from trembling. Mion saw that and whispered our grandmother. The hag nodded. Mion summoned some young minions and gave them an order. They removed one of the torture devices hanging on the wall, then set the table in front of me and put the device on top of it.
何これ？
爪を剥ぐための道具です。
Oh my gosh.
使い方はわかります？
Oh no.
わかるわけないでしょ。
I shook as I stared at the tool. It looked like a giant nail clipper. You probably put that part that looks like a beak between your fingers and fingernail and pull them apart as you squeeze the handle. The chills ran up and down my spine as when I imagined that.
爪1枚ずつでシオンがかけた迷惑のそれぞれのけじめとします。
No. Oh no.
園崎シオン、どの指でも構いません。自らの手で3枚の爪を剥がしてみせなさい。
That's insane. Fingernails are chosen because our hands and our feet are some of the most sensitive. It's part of like how we have such good tactile finger use. It's important for us. Ripping out fingernails is one of the least damaging but most painful things to do. There are probably more painful methods of torture, but they leave permanent damage and possibly death. Now, forcefully removing fingernails could permanently remove your fingernails. Like if you damage there's like a range of cells where they generate. If you damage that, the nails might never come back, or they might come back deformed. But technically, as long as that doesn't happen, you could have this torture performed on you, or perform it yourself on yourself, and after a year or so, you'd never be able to tell. Holy crap. 3. 1 for Kasai, 1 for Uncle Yashiro, and the last for Satoshi-kun. It was a fairly reasonable number.
本当にそれで他の人は許してくれるんですか？
I mean, they already might be punished.
約束して。私がちゃんと自分の爪を剥げたら他のみんなは許すと約束して。
これはあなたのけじめであって取引ではありませんよ。
Man, this is sick.
この方法が気に入らないなら
Like?
やるから待ってよ。やるから
The insanity of having to do it to yourself, too. I put the device on my little finger while shaking sadly. If my fingernail were shorter, it would have been harder. The metal beak captured my little finger beautifully. The subordinates then stabilized my hand with a different restraining tool that seemed reasonable because my finger would slip out if it weren't restrained like that. As the subordinates buckled up the leather straps, I realized that this was really happening, and there was no escape. Somewhere in my mind, I'd been thinking they might forgive me after the gesture alone. Yeah, it was the little part of yourself that hoped they had souls. So I'm gonna go on a limb here and say this is gonna get real graphic. Not likely in the sense of seeing something, but hearing. And if you're like me, sound is almost the worst part. And the voice acting has always been so good with this series. So I'm guessing we're in for a ride. I would gander that if you take note of where we are, and then look in the description, I'm gonna have, like sections that are, the kind of jump points. You can kind of manually set them, and it can, you can see it in the scroll bar, and you can also click on it. If you feel like this might be much, just click on the next one. You can get yourself to the other side of this and not have to join with me, but we're here to do this together, so. Right. Let's get it done. I shouldn't have been so naive. The emotions I'd been holding back appeared in the form of tears, kept rolling down my cheeks. It was like all my feelings were being squeezed out until the very last drip. Something even more horrifying followed this. It was the silence that awaited my next action.
で、どうするの？
One of the subordinates pointed to the handle and told me to either squeeze it or hit it. He recommended the latter would be easier to make it quick. So you squeeze it, it'll slowly pull it, or you smash it so it just goes rip. Ugh. Okay. I've said before, I have a really, really vivid imagination, right? I've never had this happen before, but I've definitely had injuries before. I've had like hangnails, you know, where they have to surgically like clip the nail out because it's dug into the skin. I also just know pain, and my vivid imagination can kind of fill in those gaps. But I'm also the kind of person, genuinely, like, it would be horrific, and it's hard to truly put yourself in the shoes of somebody going through like this. But me, the person who I am a, like, rip the Band-Aid off fast and just get it over with. So I would be a just smash it person. I would be like, there's no way I'm drawing this out. Nobody said anything after that. I'd also, like, get myself something to bite on, because I don't want to bite my tongue off. There was nothing to hear but the sound of my sweat dripping onto the floor. The onlookers are staring at me silently, waiting for me to execute my punishment. Both the hag and Mion, they were also anticipating it. I could refuse. That meant I wouldn't be paying up. The punishment exists to offer payment in exchange for the safety of those who helped me. If I refused, they would suffer. Oh my gosh! Oh no! I started breathing heavily. Yeah. I knew that if I did this, the others would go free. I mean, that's the sad thing, is like, what if they don't? I know Satoshi technically doesn't. Or if he does, he vanishes. This was, if you thought about it, quite a good deal. If you weren't me, it wouldn't be just 3 fingernails. If it were Kasai, he'd have sacrificed his little finger or something even worse. I knew that. It was my selfish desire to get away from that school. Why did Kasai have to suffer because of that? I knew that. Why did Uncle Yoshiro have to suffer just because he provided me with a job? It's tough though, because it's like, yeah, it's your fault. But is it really? That's in a sense, she's unfortunately falling under the victim blaming problem that she was so quick and readily, willing to extend to Satoshi. Apparently, it's a family thing. I knew that the hag and the other relatives still hated the Hojos, so I didn't know what they'd do to the Satoshi-kun if I didn't do this. Would they bring Satoshi-kun here and tell him to do the same? Would they tell him to remove his fingernails in exchange for forgiving me? No, they wouldn't even do that. They'd just throw him down the pit. He'd do it. He'd sacrifice himself with no hesitation in order to save others. My sweat dripped onto the table through my nose. I'd do it, yes. It was only 3 fingernails. It might hurt a lot, but it wouldn't die. The fingernails would grow back. It wouldn't even leave a huge scar. I shouldn't be afraid. The punishment was minimal because it was me. If I refused to do this, the others would be punished much more severely. I couldn't let that happen to Kasai, Uncle Yoshiro, or Satoshi-kun. I was the only one who should be punished. So I just needed to bear the pain. I wasn't just breathing heavily anymore. I was also moaning faintly, ready to scream at any moment. That's right, make it quick. It wasn't torture, so it didn't have to prolong the moment of pain. I shouldn't do it in one swift blow. That way, my pain and my fear would be minimized. I raised my right arm. Quickly. The pain would be lessened if I did it in one stroke. That's the thing, you have to follow through. You'd have to commit. You'd have to just go for it. And the problem is most people, knowing what's about to happen, would inadvertently and probably without being able to control it, hesitate, and it would just make it so much worse. And the thing is, round 2, I think it would be even harder. And round 3, it'd be much more painful if I messed it up. Here we go. I held my breath. What's with the bug sounds? I felt like as if my body was frozen. I was choking. The chills crept up my spine. Don't be afraid, Shion. Fingernails are just a tiny fraction of the whole body, just 1 square centimeter. I could do this. I could bear it. I smacked my right hand into the handle of the device. I sensed the noise through my body instead of through my ears. At the same time, I felt a pain I'd never experienced before. A moment later, the pain pulsated with my heartbeat. I would have been screaming already. I'm impressed she's holding on this well. I clenched my teeth. Felt like my teeth were cracking. I tightly shut my eyes until the eyeballs got squeezed up. The pain wouldn't fade. Rather, it swelled with the blood pressure. I felt as though I was bloating like a balloon. Well, you probably are. You're swelling. Timidly, I opened my eyes. Found that my little finger wasn't really drenched in blood. It was bleeding, but not much. Certainly not enough to explain how much it hurt. My fingernail was open, just like the hood of a car. Oh no. I thought it was like a rip out like that. It looks like it's a rip off, like a It was overwhelming. It occurred to me that I'd only just done 1 out of 3. Did I have to repeat this 2 more times? Did I have to remove the nails of my ring finger and middle finger as well? I looked at the hag and at Mion begging for mercy, but they were just silently staring at me, as if the show had only just begun. I saw no hint of mercy in their eyes. They wouldn't be changing their minds. Since they said 3, it had to be 3. They wouldn't forgive me until I removed 2 more fingernails.
ミオ、これで許して。あのね、これ本当に痛いの。
It's because the nerves are starts right
すごく
there.
痛いんだよ。私の顔を見ればわかるよね。本当にさ。
The music.
痛くて。
The music is so good compared to like the previous parts. Mion answered, still wearing a cold look.
シオン、もう無理。
She didn't mean that it was sufficient. What she meant is that the others would have to take the remaining punishment if I didn't. I knew that. I really did know.
やれるよ。こんなの全然楽勝だって。このサディストどもが。こんなの怖くない。こんなの痛くない。
I quickly moved the metal beak, set it on my ring finger, and smacked it with no hesitation. Instead of making it quick, maybe I was just rushing out of fear. I'd messed up. The torture tool had clipped just the tip of my fingernail. The pain, however, was equal. I couldn't believe it only chipped it. Did I have to do it again? Did I have to continue removing the nail of my ring finger? That much pain again? Again?
シオン、
やだ。
I couldn't bear it anymore. I started crying shamelessly. Can you imagine trying to like withstand actual torture? And what I mean by actual torture is where like this continues. You don't want it, you break, and they just keep going. They didn't seem to hear my voice. It felt as though there was an invisible barrier between us. They showed no mercy. They were here just to witness this ritual. So rather than sympathetic, they looked amazed by my screw-up. Mion walked up to me and whispered in my crying face.
シオン、あとちょっとだから頑張って。
Mion shook her head and signaled the subordinates. They came from behind me. They covered my head with something like a knit cap. It was a blindfold. One of them pinned me in a Nelson hold, restricting my movements. I couldn't overpower the guy behind me. Then I felt something strange on my left hand. The other guy was doing something with the torture tool. He put the metal beak between my ring finger and its fingernail. Can you imagine being a parent and just letting this happen to your child? My left hand was fixed in the restraint, so I couldn't put up much protest anyway. But even that, even the left hand was pressed down by his rough palm until it hurt, robbing it of the freedom even to tremble. They had no hesitation. It was made very clear to me how merciless people could be. Robbed of my vision, all I could do was clench my teeth against the pain assailing me. So for me, that would be even worse. Like, it sucks, I know. And it sounds crazy, I know. But every time I've had to face something painful, every time I've had to face something hard, I've had to do it with eyes open. I have to see it. I get way more nervous, way more afraid, way more panicky if I can't see what's happening. So if it's as simple as getting a shot, or when I have to see when I've had to go through medical procedures that have been pretty intense, until the very last second, I have to see everything happening. I have to look at it happening. Heck, I even had to watch, I was in the room with someone who was going through a major medical procedure, and I was getting woozy behind the curtain. It wasn't until I asked if I could see what was going on, and they allowed me to safely mask on and everything, but safely view the actual operation. I actually calmed down. It wasn't pleasant. It was crazy, kind of horrifying, and it really was kind of horrifying. There's something in your brain that just knows instinctively that you're not supposed to see the inside of a person. But it was way more controlled and a lot less panicky and stressful when I could see what was going on, because that's just who I am. So what Shion's going through now would be way worse for me. Not knowing when it was going to happen until it happened, I would rather keep the mask off. Maybe having them do it for me would be kind of nice in a way, because then I don't have to try and muster up that courage myself. But I would hate having my head in the bag. If there was anything I was thankful for, it was that he was well practiced and ripped off both my fingernails cleanly. Pain and screaming might have induced narcotic chemicals in the brain. While screaming, I started losing consciousness. Honestly, that's a blessing. Sadly, some torture is genuinely invented and derived to make sure you can experience pain without it being so much that you pass out, because it's a safety mechanism for our brain. It's just shutting it off the input. I woke up. My memories were missing. I couldn't remember how I got back to my room. I held my head with both hands. My left hand was bandaged. The fingers that had their nails removed had swollen like hot dogs. Can you imagine? Just think about it. I had paid with those fingernails for what I did. The hag had said something after the punishment, but I didn't remember any of it. I was taken to a hospital in Okonomiya. The car shook all the way, adding extra pain on top of what I already felt. Somebody gave me some aspirin. They worked just like they said on TV, but they didn't last more than 10 minutes. I swallowed the pills without water. While I was spacing out in the waiting lounge, Kasai showed up. He probably came to check if I was alright. I obviously wasn't. He must have understood from my bandaged left hand dangling from my left arm. Kasai, on the other hand, looked just fine. At least on the outside. I was relieved that my sacrifice had meant something. Kasai didn't say anything. I couldn't tell if he wanted to tell me something or not because he looked so emotionless.
Kasai?
なんでしょう?
He paused shortly before answering. I could tell he was upset. I didn't regret revealing my true identity in order to protect Satoshi-kun. But I hadn't wanted Kasai or Uncle Yoshiro to be hurt. I had been contradicting myself.
吉郎おじさんはどうなったか知ってます？
いいえ。したたかな方です。ご無事と思います。後で謝られた方がいいでしょう。
I wanted to ask him about Satoshi-kun too. I wonder if he was captured or harassed by the Sonozaki family because of me. But I was hesitant to ask Kasai. After all, I'd chosen Satoshi-kun over them. Was Satoshi-kun alright? I hoped he wouldn't get caught or incarcerated somewhere. I paid the hospital bill, and Kasai gave me a ride home. I finally realized that somebody was knocking on my door.
シオンさん、横になり続けるのもやはり体に毒です。
Kasai, I feel like when you've been tortured, you're allowed to have a little bit of extra sleep. It was Kasai. He put some side dishes on the table, and we started nibbling at them.
気分は落ち着かれましたか？
落ち着いたというか。
この数日間は食事はされていましたか？
冷蔵庫の中の残り物を適当に食べてました。あとは天井を見てるか眠っているかのどっちか。
It had been 3 days. I had just been lying down since then. I woke up every now and then in my shallow sleep, but I didn't feel like getting up or thinking. I felt like I'd just be floating the whole time. My appetite was gone, but it came back with the smell of food that Kasai brought. I wasn't able to think of anything to talk about to Kasai about, so I just ate in silently.
昨日、ミオンさんから連絡がありました。
Yeah, I get the feeling Shion doesn't want to talk to her.
シオンさんの部屋に何度か電話したけど、出なかったからということで。
The moment I heard Mion's name, I felt my wounds throb. But I didn't stop Kasai, who continued.
園崎本家としては、シオンさんがご自分でけじめをつけられたので、あの学園には退学届が出されます。シオンさんは沖宮の学校に編入になるそうです。
園崎シオンの人権が認められたってことか。
そうですね。今後は園崎シオンとして生活してくださって構わないそうです。ですが、みだりにひなみざわには近づかないこと。
We know she starts immediately disregarding that within a year.
園崎ミオンを語らないこと。
We also... That's interesting. Because, yeah, maybe she stops pretending to be Mion. Well, they say she will. Like, she will. I doubt she will. But in Chapter 2, I was about to say, like, she's not going to listen to that. But actually, it's Mion pretending to be Shion in that.
人前にみだりに姿を現さないこと。他にも細々とありますが、
存在を認めてやるから、本家に目立つようなことは二度とするなってわけか。
Right.
そういうことになります。もちろん永続的なわけじゃありません。ほとぼりが冷めるまで当分ということです。具体的にいつまでという期限があるわけではありませんが、今年いっぱいくらいはこれまで通り目立たない生活を送られた方がよろしいかと思います。
Gotcha. So I guess by then she is kind of allowed back.
私は沖宮でひっそり暮らすだけで十分です。もともとこれまでだってそうして暮らしてきたわけだし。
Yeah. Kasai put on a sad smile. I smiled back at him likewise. Before the conversation ended, I should ask him what I wanted to know.
サトシ君はどうなったの？
I wish that Kasai would assure me of his safety right away, but he didn't answer like that.
葛西、サトシ君は無事なの？
シオンさん。
Kasai put his chopsticks down.
本家から北条サトシ君のことは忘れろとことづかっています。
Well, there's a condition you just failed to mention.
何それ？
シオンさん、あなたと喧嘩はしたくないんで、これ以上この話はしたくありません。本家からの言葉を伝えるのみにとどめさせてもらいます。
何？その話をしたくないってのは、葛西
Kasai pretended as though he didn't hear me and started eating again. I'd never seen him get so stubborn like this. The Sonozaki family had been using the Hyojo family as a scapegoat. They must have concluded that the Sonozaki shouldn't be in love with the Hyojo. I didn't like that. Satoshi is a friend of Mion's at school. Would it be okay if Satoshi-kun and I were the same gender? Anyway, if I did something conspicuous again, they might do something to him for real. Just like they forced me to remove my own fingernails. The Sonozaki family wouldn't hesitate. They'd torture him if need be. Maybe if I really loved him, I should stay away. Satoshi-kun wouldn't show up in Okonomiya unless he rejoins the Hinamizawa fighters. I'd have to pretend to be Mion if I wanted to go to Hinamizawa, but I don't think she'd cooperate with me. Even if she did, it'd be some time down the road. Even if they told me not to see him. I already had no means of doing that again. Oh, wait. Mion gave me his number a little while ago. I could call him. and maybe ask to meet with him secretly. But if I got caught again, they wouldn't cut me any slack. Should I risk it? What the hell did I even want from Satoshi-kun? I don't know, a kiss?
葛西、ちょっと一人になりたい。
Kasai started putting away his food in a rush, assuming that I want him to leave.
あ、いいの。葛西はのんびり食べてて。私がちょっと一人で散歩がしたいだけなの。
私もシオンさんと一緒に出ないと、この部屋に鍵がかけられません。
Kasai quietly put away his meal and followed me out.
あ、先に断っとくけど、別にサトシ君に会いに行くわけじゃないからね。
わかりました。
I turned around and started walking. My destination was rather pathetic. She's gonna look for the bear. It was the toy store that sold the giant teddy bear. I couldn't deny that I was somewhat expecting Satoshi-kun to pass by there. I couldn't stop myself from looking at the faces of the passersby who resembled him. I looked in the store's window. The teddy bear was gone.
サトシ君、おめでとう。買えたんだね。
That's interesting. Because the impression that, like, Satoko has is that, like, his money vanished from his account and he left. He was just gone. So the assumption was that he, like, had saved up the money and used it to escape. But this symbol that he gets away from the police, he takes out the money, buys the bear, and then gets taken while he's going home and is vanished. Oh, that's actually really sad. His evil aunt had died and his wicked uncle was living with his mistress. Satoshi-kun succeeded in fulfilling his duty as a big brother by buying his little sister that huge teddy bear. There was nobody left to hurt him. He was free from his tiresome efforts. He was completely free from pain. Over time, he'd retrieve his smile. He'd go back to being Satoshi-kun I love. But I wouldn't be there with him. I heard a car honking. I didn't think it was honking for me at first, but it was so persistent I had to look up. The person waving at me from the car was Irie. He was waving at me all carefree, oblivious to my feelings.
園崎さん、ご無沙汰していますね。あ、ひょっとしてサトシ君と待ち合わせでしたか？
いえ、そういうわけじゃないです。
そのおもちゃ屋さんのショーウィンドウはサトシ君もよく覗いていましたからね。それでてっきりサトシ君との待ち合わせか何かかなって思っちゃいまして。
いえ、たまたまここを通りかかっただけです。買えたみたいですね、サトシ君。
Irie seemed to know about the teddy bear as well. He smiled upon seeing its empty display space.
昨日がサトコちゃんの誕生日でした。きっとあのぬいぐるみでそれをお祝いできたと思います。
Again, though, I don't think he even made it home with it.
じゃあも
I think
う
he's
サ
already
トシ
gone.
君は無茶なアルバイトに精を出さなくてもいいわけですね。
そうですね。
サトシ君ってひなみざわファイターズ退部届とか出しちゃったんですか？
Come on, man. Come on, say he's actually gonna rejoin.
そんなもの出てたんですか？私は受け取ってませんよ。マネージャーの園崎さんは？
Oh.
受け取ってないです。
誰も退部届を受け取ってないなら、しばらくして生活が落ち着いたら、また戻ってきてくれるんじゃないかなって思ってます。
The thing is, I don't know if I can trust Irie. He's really great about he cares about Satoko for sure. And I think he genuinely cares about Satoshi as well. He probably doesn't like that. I think he hates when kids get involved. Because even though it didn't seem like he didn't directly report the missing kid in the last chapter, I feel like he might have been trying to help somehow. Because I think he doesn't like it when kids get involved in stuff. But part of me is almost wondering too, he's been very good about being able to put on a front. So is he involved in Satoshi vanishing?
でもその時に園崎さんがいなかったらきっと悲しむだろうな。
Irie teased me. He's a grown-up after all. He must have been trying to sound optimistic because I knew he knew I was feeling a bit down.
園崎さんも落ち着いたらいつでもチームに帰ってきてください。あなたがいないとやっぱり寂しいですよ。園崎さんが帰ってきてくれたら ぜひ女子マネージャーの制服を
Of course.
メイドさんな格好にしようと思ってまして。
I burst into laughter. Irie sure hasn't changed.
あ、そうだ。もう名乗ってもいいんだった。監督、今まで騙しててすみません。私、ミオンじゃないんです。シオンっていう双子の妹なんです。訳ありで、今までずっとミオンのふりしてきました。
双子の妹さんですか？
He was totally taken aback. I burst into laughter again.
そうです。園崎シオンと言います。園崎本家に嫌われてるんで、あまり堂々と暮らせる立場じゃないんですけどね。
知らなかったですよ。まさかミオンさんに双子の妹さんがいたなんて。
Oh, hi.
そりゃ全く同感です。
How much you want to bet he's about to drop the bomb that Satoshi's gone missing? Suddenly, a loud voice interrupted us. The voice sounded mean and greasy, unlike Irie's. It was him, Oishi.
入江先生もこんにちは。先日は遅くまでありがとうございました。
Oh,
いえ、何もお役に立てませんで、
there was just...
申し訳ないです。
Oh, I was about to say, like, what did he do? It's like, oh, it's the investigation of the murder. They were just going through the motions. It was obvious they hated each other. Irie whispered to me.
私はもうここを離れますが、一緒に車に乗りますか？お家まで送りますよ。
Irie figured that Oishi was after me, and he was giving me a chance to slip away. Looking at Oishi's face, it was clear that his focus was on me and not Irie. He probably intended to interrogate me until my testimony broke. I was sure I could talk my way out of it, but it'd just be a waste of time.
そうですね。じゃあ監督、そろそろ行きましょうか。
ありゃ、お二人でどちらかにお出かけの途中でしたか？
ええ、チームのユース済み会用に景品を探しているところだったんです。他にも行くお店がたくさんありますので、この辺で私たちは失礼します。
Irie bowed, and I followed suit. I had to admire how good he was at lying. He's grown up after all. Oishi seemed to know it was a lie. But he didn't have a warrant, so he couldn't stop us. I moved to get into Irie's car.
お怪我は大丈夫なんですか？園崎シオンさん。
I gasped when I heard that. My left hand was bandaged. It was unsightly, so I kept it in my pocket. There was no way Oishi could have been able to see it.
可能さえしなきゃ綺麗に治りますよ。
He already knows so much!
私も子供の頃は何度か爪を剥いじゃったことがありましたがね。ほら、綺麗なもんでしょう。
That's really creepy.
男の爪が綺麗でも気色悪いだけです。
Oishi scratched his head and chuckled. He's supposed to be one of the best cops in Nokonomiya PD. He knows about all about the underground activities in the region. He must have heard about my payment from someone. Still, that happened to be in the secret of the basement of the Sonozaki main house. I couldn't underestimate this guy's sources.
お見舞い。感謝感激です。
There's definitely someone in the inner circle of the Sonozakis that is whispering to him. We know that from the child rescue case.
じゃあ、もう行きますね。失礼します。
園崎シオンさん、私とコーヒーでも飲みに行きません？
Like, yeah, are you asking a high school girl out on a date? That's creepy.
はあ？何それ？私を口説いてんですか？
そういうことでもいいですよ。
遠慮します。一日は有限。わざわざ退屈なことに費やすなんて馬鹿げてますから。
You might as well lay a smack down on him.
もう参ったな。
He's like, you know what, fair.
じゃあこうしましょう。私とのおしゃべりが退屈になったらいつでも途中で帰っていいです。
Alright, bye.
引き止めません？そういう約束でどうです？
あんたが喋るのは勝手ですが、私は喋りませんよ。
Oh, she's like literally like, I mean, you can talk.
それをおしゃべりと呼べるかは怪しいですが。
ねえ、それで結構です。シオンさんは聞き役で結構です。私が勝手に一方的に喋るだ
Here
け。
it comes.
あなたはコーヒーでも飲みながら、中年親父の独り言を聞き流してくださればそれで結構です。
I just have a feeling he's gonna be like, Maybe you can help us find Satoshi. He's gone missing. He was being strangely persistent. It didn't look like he was trying to poke a hole in my statement. Why would he even talk about? I got a bit curious, even though I was still skeptical.
監督、すみません。私、ちょっと大石のおじさまとデートに行こうと思います。
Bold strategy.
ミオ、じゃない。シオンさん？
I winked at him and told him not to worry. Irie didn't insist. He got in his car and drove off. She's way too confident in herself. Oishi backed his car up so I could get in. I hopped in the back seat since I didn't want to sit next to him.
本当に喫茶店に行くの？
あなたの親類の目がない喫茶店があるなら
He's got a point
紹介してもらえ
there.
ると助かるんですがね。
You know, I almost wonder if he's going to so covertly try to recruit her because he knows that she's on the outs, so that he could be like, this could be an opportunity to get some like inside information.
チェ、それなら勝手に連行でも何でもすればいい。
Oishi carefully checked on oncoming traffic, then started driving. Oishi took me to the police station as I thought he might. If he had taken me to a nice cafe, he would have scored some points. Well, but whatever.
書の方が都合がいいと思ったから書にしただけです。
Family's gonna hate this.
私の話が退屈になったら帰っていいという約束は。
私を退屈させないように頑張ってくださいな。署内には腕組んで入ってあげましょうか。
Oh my
おじさ
gosh.
ま。
Oh my gosh. Oishi chuckled and got out of the car. He escorted me inside the station. I thought he'd take me to an interrogation room, but instead he took me to an office in the investigation division. Officers in both suits and uniforms were working at their desks answering phones. There was a desk with a plaque on it that said section manager. Nearby there were couches and a table. Oishi tried to sit on the couch and started making some instant coffee. I'd never been to this part of the police station. I looked around in curiosity.
まさか取り調べ室でカツ丼でも食わされると思いました？
I mean, you did last time. Oishi brought over a tray with coffee cups on it.
想像してたより待遇が良くて驚いてます。三角木馬くらいは覚悟してたのに。
そういうのは私の趣味じゃないな。
Oh my gosh, stop with the creepy undertones.
で、おしゃべりを聞かせてくれるんじゃなかったでしたっけ？
じゃあ最初からいきなり単刀直入に。シオンさんって北条聡さんのこと好き？
Oh boy.
はあ？速攻退屈なんで即帰りますよ。
じゃあ今のはなしということで。
Oishi must have known why I had to remove my fingernails. He wasn't trying to confirm that I like Satoshi-kun. What he was really saying is that he knew already.
サトシ君の事件当日のアリバイなら、先日熊谷刑事さんに全部お話ししたつもりです。
もちろん、私も熊谷君の調書は読んでます。あなたがサトシ君と一緒にいたことは知ってます。
何度聞かれたって、同じ話しかしませんよ、私。しつこく反復して聞いたら、そのうちにボロを出すとか考えてるなら、大甘もいいと。
まさか、そんなこと考えてません。あなたは頭のいい人です。そんな手に引っかかるなんて思っちゃいません。
ならどういう手を考えてるやら。どちらにせよ、私からサトシ君のことを何か聞き出そうとしても、先日お話しした以上のことは何もありません。ああ、残念。やっぱり退屈な話でしたね。私、帰らせてもらいます。そういう約束でしたからね。失礼します。
I got up off the couch.
シオンさん、確かに私はあなたからサトシさんのアリバイを聞こうと思っていました。それは認めますよ。
なら決まりです。やっぱり退屈でした。帰ります。
I turned around and started walking. Oishi did get anxious, but instead spoke a little louder.
でもね、シオンさん。私が聞きたいのはサトシさんの事件当日のアリバイじゃない。昨日のアリバイなんです。
昨日？なんで昨日のアリバイなんかが聞かれるんですか？昨日のサトシ君のアリバイが、おばさんが殺された事件とどう関係があるってんです？
昨日、サトシ君が出かけたまま失踪されたからです。
And we knew it was coming. What?
サトシ君が失踪されたことはご存知なかった？
I couldn't say anything, but my expression answered Oishi's questions anyway.
どういうことですか？失踪って何？
やっぱり座ったらどうです？
サトシ君が失踪したって。何？
一つ確実に分かっていることは、彼が3時前に沖宮の郵便局で貯金を全額下ろしているということだけです。その後の足取りはつかめません。
I knew why he withdrew that money. He wanted to buy Satoko's birthday present. Yeah, he definitely bought the teddy bear yesterday.
これは私の想像ですよ。彼はひょっとしてそのお金でどっか遠くに蒸発したんじゃないかなって。
I feel like the screen twitched there. Is that just me? Am I starting to hallucinate?
逃走資金だってんですか？バッカバカしい。あのお金はね、サトコの誕生日プレゼントを買うためにサトシ君が貯めていたんです。それであのおもちゃ屋にあったでかくて高いぬいぐるみを買ったんです。逃走に使うお金になんかなるわけないです。
確かにあのおもちゃ屋から一番高いぬいぐるみが売れていました。でもね、それをサトシ君が買った確証が取れないんです。
That's odd. But remember that store is probably owned by the family. So they probably obscured any information they might have had about Satoshi.
店の人に聞けばそんなのわかりますって。私とサトシ君で買う予約までしてるんですから。
I had a bad feeling. That old man who was watching the store was sleeping when we were there. He looked very senile. Maybe he was also watching the store on the day, and even though Satoshi-kun bought the teddy bear, he didn't remember. Oishi put on a wry smile. It looked like he'd already tried to question that old man.
とにかくあれを買ったのはサトシ君なんです。サトシ君はぬいぐるみの金額ギリギリしかお金がなかったはずだから、ぬいぐるみ代を支払ってさらに逃亡資金を用意できたなんて思えません。めちゃめちゃもいいとこです。
いいですよ。じゃあサトシ君がぬいぐるみを買ったことでもいいです。じゃあそのぬいぐるみを持ってどうして帰らなかったんですか？
At that point, I felt as though my heart turned to ice. Satoshi-kun had been working hard to buy the teddy bear even though he was under extreme mental and physical stress. After all that, he managed to buy it. It's unthinkable that somebody else just showed up and bought the same teddy bear. The teddy bear was gone because Satoshi-kun bought it. Nobody else. But if so, Satoshi-kun should have given it to Satoko. But though he bought the present for her, he didn't come home. He didn't come home. That wasn't possible. He would have gone straight home with that teddy bear. He wouldn't think of running away after buying a teddy bear. Even though Satoshi-kun wanted to run away from the police, he'd never leave without giving Satoko her present. Anyway, it must have been Satoshi-kun who bought the teddy bear. I can say with 100% certainty. The question was, why didn't he bring it home? That teddy bear is huge. It wouldn't fit in the basket of a bicycle. He might have bought some straps to tie it to his bike. He wouldn't have thought of running away on a wobbly bicycle like that. He necessarily had to get it home after buying the teddy bear from the store after withdrawing the money. Nothing could have happened when he was going between the ATM and the toy store. It was impossible. Nobody else would have possibly bought the teddy bear. Never. The teddy bear had been sitting on the showcase up until that day. Everybody could see that when they passed by, but nobody wanted it. It was impossible that it could have been somebody else. There should be no question that he went to the toy store after he withdrew the money. What about the route between the toy store and his home? There shouldn't be any questions there either. He shouldn't have been able to do anything with that huge toy. He shouldn't have even had the thought of making a stop on the way. So he must have headed home right after he bought the teddy bear. But nobody saw him after that. It was simple then. Satoshi-kun went missing on his way home from the toy store. He went missing? What did that mean? I was sure he killed his aunt. He's not that shrewd. Maybe he couldn't bear the pressure from the police? Was he resigned to the idea that the police were going to arrest him soon, regardless of my help? Did he decide to run away? Or did he think he should disappear until things cooled down rather than to get arrested? That was definitely, absolutely impossible. It was impossible he came to that conclusion on his way home from the toy store. Even if he did, he wouldn't have waited till he gave Satoko her birthday present. That's probably true. That's the kind of man he was. He would have bought the teddy bear, had a heartfelt, she wouldn't know it was a goodbye, but a goodbye, and then he'd try and run away. Satoshi-kun loved Satoko. He shouldn't have spoiled her like that, but anyway, he always tried to be a good brother to her, so he'd never disappear before going home. Felt as though the ice was cutting through my heart, expanding the frost. If Satoshi-kun didn't disappear by his own will, the answer was simple. Satoshi-kun disappeared by somebody else's will.
サトシ君が消された。バカバカしいです。やっぱり退屈な話ですよ、おじさま。
I thought I could shake off the frost in my heart if I laughed loud enough. I kept laughing until it happened. I kept laughing and laughing, and all the cops in the room stared at me. They thought I'd gone crazy. Girl, you kinda have. I didn't care what they thought. I kept laughing until it turned into a cough. I finished laughing and took a sip of lukewarm coffee. I felt as though the frost in my heart spread all through my gut and I was chilled to the bone. I was freezing. My fingers shook as I held the coffee cup.
シオンさん、ちょっと口を挟まずに聞いててほしいんです。これから私がちょいと想像した話を申し上げます。全部でっち上げです。
Right.
だからきっとシオンさんはあまりのいい加減な内容に吹き出しちゃいそうになるかもしれません。それでも最後まで黙って聞いていてほしいんです。約束してもらえます？
いや、約束なんて何でもするから。
I was feeling far too cold. My teeth were
早く言い
chattering.
なさいよ。
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize she was going to take that long. I was feeling far too cold. My teeth were chattering. I felt as though my brain had frozen as well. I'd lost my ability to think. I couldn't do anything by myself. I could only do what Oishi told me. What he was going to tell me might be the worst possible theory, but I had to listen to it.
死んだおばがサトシ君とサトコさんをいじめていたことはよーく聞いています。中でもサトコさんを執拗にいじめていたこともね。その中でサトシ君が妹をかばうためにおばに殺意を募らせていったとしても、私は人として自然な流れだと思います。
I had to deny that Satoshi-kun murdered her, but what Oishi was saying was true. I couldn't deny his hypothesis right away. I just kept quiet.
ここからは空想ですよ。
He could read her like a book.
絶対に怒らないでください。口を挟むのもなし。
Right.
いいですね。
Right.
わかってるから早く続けなさいよ。
北条聡はおば殺しを計画し実行した。ねえ、もちろん証拠なんてありませんよ。全部私の妄想です。
All theoretical. But suppose he did.
わかってるって。あんたの妄想なのは百も承知。だから早く続けて。
ここで話は変わります。シオンさん、あなたはサトシ君との交際を禁じられたんですよね。もう忘れろ。二度と関わるなと念を押されたんですよね。それは実は不仲な両家の関係を意味嫌ったからでなく、殺人犯と園崎家の令嬢が恋仲であることに問題があったんじゃないかと思ったんです。
Oh my gosh. This actually almost implies maybe Satoko was going to be the one that originally was going to be vanished, but because Shion got involved with him, he gets associated with them, and that can't be allowed because the family name gets tarnished by his name. And even if nothing else came of it, which they couldn't even prevent it, but probably couldn't prevent if they really wanted to, it still is bad. And so maybe he became the target at the last second because Shion loves him. Holy crap. Could you imagine if it was that close? Like he was going to be fine. It was going to be Satoko that was going to be vanished. But the last possible second, he gets selected because Shion confessed that she loved him. That is actually possible. After all, when I was pretending to be Mion, I'd already had a connection with Satoshi-kun. Before anyone knew it was Shion who was spending time around him. I could have been accused when I was helping out the Hinamizawa fighters in a relationship because the Hojos and the Sonozakis was a problem. It wouldn't be too difficult for the Sonozaki family to know that Satoshi-kun murdered his aunt if it happened at Hinamizawa. Maybe one of them even saw the murder. The Sonozaki family didn't like that I was in love with the murderer. They decided to step in.
あと、あなた、諦めが悪いことでも知られてるんじゃないですか?
And as much as tradition might dictate, they really can't afford the look of taking out one of their family members.
つまり、 園崎本家にサトシ君との縁を切れと脅されて、爪を剥がされてもサトシ君との縁を切りかねていましたよね。
And they knew that. They knew you wouldn't cut the ties. I couldn't deny that. I lost most of my means to access Hinamizawa, so my ties with Satoshi-kun were essentially cut true. But I still knew Satoshi-kun's phone number. I expected him to rejoin the Hinamizawa fighters eventually.
園崎本家はサトシ君とあなたの縁はちょっと脅しただけじゃ絶対に切れないと分かっていたと思います。
So they break the ties for you.
あなたをいくら脅してもどうにもならない。じゃあもう一人の方をどうにかするしかないですよね。
Oh my gosh.
どうにかって何？どうにかって何よ？何？
If threatening me was useless, then they'd do something about Satoshi-kun. What would they have done? If they repelled something, they wouldn't have interrupted his path from the toy store to home. Then wouldn't they interrupt his path from the toy store to home? Toy store to home. Toy store to X to home. What's X? What's X? X marks the spot where his path was interrupted. But what interrupted it? Why couldn't Satoshi-kun make it home from the toy store if something interrupted him? Why? What's X? X. I don't know. Maybe the suspicious van? I ran out of air, became dizzy, and collapsed. The floor felt cold. I felt no pain. I'd fallen to the floor like a plastic doll. Oishi and some others rushed over to me and helped me up.
落ち着いてシオンさん。サトシ君が殺されたとはまだ限りません。
You're not certain he was killed? What the fetch are you talking about? Don't you know about the torture room when they forced me to rip off my fingernails? Don't you know what they say about our prison cells and a well for disposing of corpses in the back? If the Sonozaki family wants to eliminate somebody, they definitely kill them in the torture room and dump the body down there. You're not certain? Are you dumb? Is your brain made of tofu? If I were in the hag's position, I'd kill him for sure. I wouldn't let him get away. If I would kill him, then the hag would definitely kill him.
シオンさん、落ち着いて。これはまだ未確認情報ですが、名古屋駅で家出人風の若者を見たという情報が入っています。
Okay.
東京行きの新幹線に乗ったそうです。服装の特徴などが一致しませんでしたが、警察の追跡等を意識して衣替えをしている可能性もあります。服装が違うからサトシ君でないとは言い切れませんよ。
生きてるの？サトシ君。
ここからもまた私の想像になりますがね、あなたの双子のお姉さんのミヨンさん、次期当主ということで、園崎お涼の身近にいますよね。
Oh my gosh, I just realized something. What if while Shion was in recovery, what if Mion pretended to be Shion and convinced him to run away? So he runs away, and then he gets vanished, but far away from the valley, with a pretty solid alibi that he disappears. And all Mion would have to do is pretend to be Shion, just once.
園崎お涼は、おそらく最初は、サトシ君をこっそり殺してしまおうと提案したと思います。それを、あなたのお姉さんが止めたんじゃないかと思うんです。
Mion? That was possible. She could have tried to calm things down out of pity for me. Or for herself, she liked Satoshi. Like, not like in love with him, but like, they were friends. The idiot was always so indecisive. She should have been clear on what she wanted if she saved him or not. But she probably seemed vague about it. She must have persuaded the hag to reduce the punishment to banishment instead of death, just to avoid feeling guilty.
おそらく、園崎本家はサトシ君と接触したでしょう。今回の事件はかばいきれない。だから、自分の身は自分で守るために、どこかへ姿を隠せと忠告したはずです。いや、強要したと言った方が似合うでしょうね。
Alright, you know, I could actually believe that.
サトシ君は絶対拒否すると思います。
Well, they might have threatened his sister. I think if they threatened his sister, that would have done it.
だって、あのサトシ君が妹を一人残して、ひなみざわを離れられるわけがない。
私もそう思います。確か、サトシ君は園崎美音さんの紹介でバイトをしてましたよね。だから、サトシ君に逃走資金になるまとまったお金があることを知っていたと思います。
でもサトシ君は、そのお金をぬいぐるみを買う以外には絶対に使わないはずです。
でしょうね。サトシ君は貯金を下ろしたら迷うことなくおもちゃ屋に向かうでしょう。でも、サトシ君がおもちゃ屋にたどり着くと、
Oh,
もうぬいぐるみ
whoa.
が売れてしまっていて、なくなっていたら。
Why? It's like to make him feel like he has to panic? That would have been a very desolate situation. He'd been working hard. While his aunt abused him, he worked so many jobs. The money was worth all that pain. He went to the toy store with the money in order to buy his beloved sister a present that was the only purpose for that money. He must have looked like the teddy bear he'd always done. But it was gone. He wouldn't have gone into a panic right away, because he was always so optimistic. He might have thought the store was wrapping the gift for him because he told them he'd pick it up that day. He must have gone to the store joyously. Couldn't guess exactly what happened next. My heart would tear up if I tried to imagine it anyway. Why didn't they have it? Even though he had reserved. Did the old man understand the situation, or was he zoning out? Maybe it would have been the same even if it wasn't the old man who was at the store that time. If a bunch of fierce-looking subordinates from the Sonozaki family went in and showed them the money, nobody could have rejected it. Satoshi-kun must have sunk into silence. No matter how hard he complained, the teddy bear was gone. He probably never even considered that his dream might be taken away. He must have been wobbling his way home in sorrow, leaning on telephone poles every now and then. It was the day he wanted Satoko to be happy the most. He couldn't get the present she wanted most. He probably didn't think of getting another gift, because it was unimaginable he couldn't get that teddy bear. It might have imagined how Satoko would react if she found out he had no present for her. He must have looked unbelievably sad and empty. The money he'd been saving meant nothing anymore. Satoshi-kun never cried even at his toughest moments. Did he know how to cry? It was always Satoko who was crying. So Satoshi-kun never learned how to cry, and he grew up that way. Did you know? People shed sadness from their hearts with tears. Satoshi-kun wasn't even allowed to do that, even though his heart was filled with sorrow. He couldn't let it out.
妹を一人残してHinamizawaを離れられないと言いましたね。でももしも、園崎本家が残った聡子さんの面倒は見るって言ってあったとしたらどう思います？
Oh gosh. After Satoshi-kun found out the teddy bear was gone, all he had left were some crumpled bills. The family told him that it's just a matter of time before the police got to him, told him to run away. They said they'd take care of Satoko. Satoshi-kun didn't feel like seeing his sister. He wandered and found himself in Okonomiya Station. He must have been apologizing to Satoko so many times in his mind. He swore he'd come back someday. He'd headed to Nagoya, and then to Tokyo. But that meant he's alive. He's alive! I should be able to see him again someday. He must be coming back, so I'd definitely see him again.
そうして、ずっと遠方に隠れ家か、受け入れ先を用意してくれたんじゃないかと思います。
See, I don't believe that for a second. I'm sure he's dead.
サトシ君はそこを目指したのでしょう。
じゃあ、無事なんだ。いつか帰ってくるんですよね。
Oishi looked up at the ceiling and stretched. He didn't answer me. On June 24th, 1982, Satoshi Hojo went missing. There is a possibility that he ran away, as he was the prime suspect of the murder that happened on the 20th of that same month. Allegedly, someone resembling him was seen at Nagoya Station embarking on a train heading to Tokyo, but the truth is unknown. No one has seen him since. As a matter of fact, no one ever knows if he's alive. And then they get a random guy that, like, confesses to the crime later. Like, what's that all about? I still wonder what that's about. Alright. Almost done. Notebook pages. Train to nowhere. Had a dear friend go missing. Okay, notebook page 34 and then 42. The information that Satoshi-kun might have headed to Tokyo hasn't been verified. It started as follows. A young man came to the lost and found window looking for his wallet. The station employee asked him to write down his name on the form. Then the young man tried writing Hyojo as his name, but he stopped in the middle, crumpled up the form, and wrote a totally different name on another form. Another station employee witnessed a similar-looking young man rushing into the train heading to Tokyo. The employee for the lost and found. and the employee who were on the platform talked about the suspicious young man in the locker room. That was all. That does sound like him. The wallet of the man named Hyojo was never reported as found to the Lost and Found office. At first, I thought Oishi's theory that the Sonozaki family banished Satoshi-kun from Hinamizawa and looked after Shion in return was bogus. But thinking about it now, it doesn't feel too far-fetched. After all, Satoko Hyojo started living with Rika Furude after Satoshi-kun's disappearance. Oh, maybe Rika volunteered to do that. Rika Furude isn't just a regular girl. She was the head of the Furude family, one of the 3 families. The head of the Kimiyoshi family is Rika Furude's guardian. The Sonozaki family probably couldn't step in due to having been officially opposed to the Hyojo family, but Satoko Hyojo is in the custody of the 3 families now. Even though the Hyojo family was severely ostracized during the dam conflict, Satoko Hyojo was now under protection. It seemed as though only Satoko was exempt from blame. Why was she spared, even though Satoshi-kun wasn't? Okay. There's something else I want to check in here on the 34. Like I'm gonna skip through because I feel like I glossed over like the last thing there. I want to go read it again. The wallet of the man named Hyojo was never reported as found to the Lost and Found office. So he thought he was missing a wallet and probably had his ID in it, right? And they're saying it was lost. They never found it. Okay. God, does that mean anything? What does anything mean, really? Okay, so it sounds like the story might have had a little bit more credibility than originally thought. Hyojo, he goes away, and I could see him legitimately running away and being persuaded. And like he's got a good point there at the end of that second note that Satoko was technically protected. The Sonozakis couldn't protect her because they basically had a feud with that name. But if she was being protected by the 3 families, then the Sonozakis couldn't really like oppose it. But it was left to the Furudes and the mayor and his family to follow through with protecting her. Dang. That's really interesting. I'm not sure what to make of all that. I'm not too sure if I still am in this camp where I don't think they really want him to escape per se. But now I'm starting to wonder, maybe they decided to like let him vanish in that way. And maybe helped him even change his name. But maybe the guy who confessed down the line was him, but confessed under a different name. And like they just made sure that the investigation never went anywhere. Or they really just got some random guy to confess to try and wrap up the story to protect him and like the Sonozaki family. But that feels like an odd loose end for a family that's willing to let like Shion rip her own fingernails off, right? I don't know. There's something about that still doesn't feel quite right as a story. But I understand why it's more believable now that it's been explained, especially by like note 40, like page 42. I don't know. I'll have to see. Anyway, I think we're done here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that episode, or, well, tolerated it. It was a really good one, I think, but it was intense. But, yeah, I guess we're not done yet. Let's figure out how things play out from here and maybe see how Shion tries to process this, like, Satoshi gone missing, and maybe she's going to try and do her own internal investigation into things, and that's what's going to happen. And remember, that's why, like, a year from now, when she's sitting with Keiichi, she had, like, the dark, like, you really think he ran away? You really think he, like, just ran away? Because that's the thing, too, is, like, she seems to not to believe that he actually just ran away. So something convinces her of otherwise, I'm guessing. Interesting. All right. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you especially to the patrons and members and supporters of the channel. It means the world to me. Man, I got to do a patron cast. Gotta figure out when I'm gonna do that, but luckily that should be a lot easier to record, so I should be able to sneak that in on a work day when I might normally not be able to record other stuff, so I can probably get that done. Anyway, Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. Look forward to hearing your comments on this one. No spoilers, obviously, but I'm looking forward to it. And until next video, watching me up, see me in next. I'll see you there.